Welcome back to another electrifying edition of the Stop Doing Stupid Stuff podcast. Join your hosts, Tim Keefe and Andreas Wieman, as they dive into the vibrant world of employee motivation. Today's discussion is sparked by a thought-provoking Forbes article by Tony Gambill, titled The Overlooked Employee Motivation Strategy for Increased Performance. Tim and Andreas are set to dissect and debate the innovative approaches outlined in the article, challenging the conventional wisdom surrounding workplace motivation. Whether you're a leader looking to inspire your team or an individual seeking to boost your own engagement, this episode is packed with actionable insights and a good dose of humor. Prepare to transform your approach to motivation at work and maybe even shake up your daily grind. Don't miss out on this game-changing conversation.
Hey everybody, welcome to another jam-packed, thrilling edition of Stop Doing Stupid Stuff podcast. I am here with co-conspirator Tim Keefe. Tim, what are we bantering about today?
Well, yeah, thanks, Andreas. What I wanted to do is kind of tee up an article that I think aligns with a major topic we've been talking about around employee motivation. So Tony Gambill it wrote this article on February 17th, submitted it was published in Forbes. And it's the title of the article is The Overlooked Employee Motivation Strategy for Increased Performance. Now, I read that headline and I'm going, I wonder if this is going to be electrical, waterboarding, the typical old, the beatings will continue till the morale improves. Fortunately, that's not the article at all. So, as we think about this concept of motivation, especially as, we see organizations doing I'm taking attendance for 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. What does this mean? And I know you've been doing a lot of work in this space for us internally and for our clients. So, as you think about motivation, what does it mean to you?
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good tee up. And honestly, if you've read our book, Stop Doing Stupid Stuff, we hit on a lot of driving experiences that have a lot of autonomy that's introduced to the individual, right? Even in large, complex organizations that have thousands of employees, how do you individualize it so that way that individual feels like an individual, not just another cog in the machine? And I think the level of effort that is exerted by them, as much of a voluntary effort that you can get them to muster and provide you, it's measurably more impactful, quicker, faster, with a higher level of quality outcomes because they're passionate about it. They're motivated about it, exactly like Tony says in his article. And I think he's got some really good points in here that I think we need to get to, the three focal items that we need to get to. But that's kind of where the motivation comes for me. And it can't just be the old traditional ways of like you opened. I know you were joking, but you're kind of half serious too about, let's push people 115% and we'll get the 100% out of them. And then eventually, the 100% is not good enough. And there's someone in line, that I can hire to replace them. And then the cycle continues. That ain't the case anymore. The variables just from how work is done, where work is done, and the generational makeup. If you've listened to our previous podcast, we're hitting on this for a very objectively measurable reason. There's a huge divergence in, what is present today in the tools that you have, where people are located, the projects they're working on, and the age and demographics and experiences that they've had in the last, let's say, 5 years or so. That is all factors with varying weights that need to be considered into your equation of what work do we need to do to be fulfilling to individuals and for our clients and customers or constituents or students, et cetera, for really for anybody. And so anyways, I'm getting a bit talky here, so I'm going to kick it back over to you for your thoughts, but that's kind
There's
of
a lot of big words for you, actually. I was kind of impressed.
I know I got a whole list of post-it notes here of words I got to try to use.
Expand your vocabulary. How do I use this word in a sentence today? That'd be pretty good. No, but I like look, I think it's fascinating that even in 2025, there are still companies, not just managers, but actually companies that their culture is still of you will do the work or you will be punished. I mean, maybe they don't say it exactly like that, but it's if you don't meet let's pick on Meta a little bit, right? They just announced the other day that they're going to take in their rating system, the bottom 5% are going to be terminated every year, like the old GE model, right? That worked so effectively. And it doesn't matter that, you may be the bottom of a top performing team. you're at the bottom, so you're going to go. And, this is the kind of stuff that I think people pre-pandemic or, even back in the 80s and 90s, people, allowed themselves to be kind of browbeaten around this. But as I think more and more people have developed their own sense of self, either through the gig economy, et cetera, they're less, that doesn't work very well. And, so to your point, you've got to find ways that make people kind of want to be there to enjoy what they're doing. And we hear this a lot with millennials and Gen Z hiring, because who they're working with and what they're doing is more important than how much I'm getting paid. And this really goes to your point. Like, if the only carrot I have or the only lever I have with employees is a bonus or not bonus or a promotion or increase in pay, that's going to limit you, I think. Versus, as Tony calls out in the article, this whole concept of intrinsic motivation, that comes from internally, versus the extrinsic, which is because of you, I'm doing it, versus the fact. And I think that's really important. And, am I working because my boss is in essence threatening me, even if it's not a threat, but it's implied? Or is this person inspiring me to do something better or something I haven't even done maybe before, or making me think I can do something I hadn't done before? And that's fascinating. I really, I think that, when you have that opportunity to listen, right, goes back to our conversation a little bit about balanced wise IQ in our last podcast. But am I listening? Do I have an opportunity to actually effectively engage? And even in Tony's article, it's kind of interesting. He talks about conversations and, between a supervisor and a subordinate. And you and I both know that that's really hard to do in this day. And not because of remote or non-remote. It has to do with the span of control of a manager and all the other pressures that are on maybe that manager. How much time can they actually allocate to that conversation?
Yeah. No,
And
agreed.
go ahead.
Oh no, you sound like you were gonna go, so I was
Oh,
paused.
I could rant for 30, 40 minutes, and that's going to defeat the purpose of the call.
But no, I agree with it. And like, look, there isn't, this is a complex issue. I want to be 100% clear across the board. This is a very complex issue.
Yep.
And it's complex because every single organization has varying factors and there's not a checklist. And this is part of the problem that got us to this point, to be honest with you. There's not a checklist that remedies this for everybody. Now,
Nope.
we kind of had an environment, what I call the variables in the environment that had a degree, a broader spectrum of allowance that would allow for quote unquote success. That has slimmed down tremendously now for a lot of the factors that Tim just mentioned. And so I don't care how long you've been doing this. I've been at this for 25 years. I started when I was real young, by the way. I still like to think I'm young every once in a
Child,
while.
just a child.
In Tim's experience, our partner's experience, we're seeing things we've never seen before. And so we've got to adjust for the environmental circumstances that we're seeing, the variables now, and the weightings of each of those variables are also shifting. And that depends on, this is where I'm talking about the complexity of the organization, what they're facing. It's not just a synonymous, oh, well, executives are stupid and every decision they make is just so they can enrich themselves. Like, look, there's validity in some of that in certain situations. And others, there are truly executives that they don't know what to do. And they're getting terrible advice from a lot of others as well who think they know what to do, i.e., going back to your comment around, a veiled thread. I truly believe a lot of executives and let's say HR leaders too, and other leaders in organizations, they're doing what they think is right, but they're also having a bit of blinders on when they're in this decision making, which is why I think Tony's article is so good because it kind of encourages everyone at all levels of an organization to be inquisitive and
Yep.
ask questions. And he has ARC as a guiding principle here, and basically ARC stands for autonomy, relatedness, and competence. And I think every person in an organization, if you step back and look at what level of autonomy do you have, i.e., how free are you to actually go do your job rather than having that traditional checklist, right? How relatable is it to you? How do you feel you're trained to be able to perform the functions that you're asked or the job that you're asked to do? And how much does it relate to what you're passionate about, you know? And then the other thing I think is competence. What is your degree of competency for what you're asked to do today? Was it something you were trained on 5 years ago and you haven't had any alternative skilling or upskilling since then? That's a problem too, because again, there's variables that constantly are in flux and change. All of those things right there. And again, there's more items to it, but I think Tony did a really good job at picking out probably the ones that carry the most weight. For if you focus on these items, you have the time to focus, to your point, this is where you're going to get the quickest and highest quality return on your investment.
Yep.
Now I'm talking a lot, so I'm going to pause for a second and get your thoughts.
No, but I mean, but how do we take that from this kind of academic discussion that we're having, right, to what does that look like in a practical example? And, I think we have our team, the team here at Transform CX, just recently did an amazing thing. One, we encourage them, as we wrote the book, Stop Doing Stupid Stuff, now almost over 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago now, a year and a half ago, that inspired other people on the team to be like, whoa, can we do that? Would you, is that something we can do as part of our own personal digital growth, like expanding our professional reputation, but also adding to the portfolio of knowledge that we're putting out there under our Stop Doing Stupid Stuff umbrella? And of course, being the forward-looking geniuses that we are, we said absolutely. Well, behind the scenes, we're like, oh my God, are we tying up a lot of really valuable resources? And is this really going to move the quote unquote, our revenue goals forward and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it was a tough conversation that I had, and I think you were involved in some of it, which is what are we doing with resource allocation? And yet the reality was when we said yes and encouraged them and supported them and even allocated business resources to allow for it, they got a book published, SDSS Tourista. They just did a book signing with a ton of corporate sponsors in Manila. And again, did it take up a lot of time and energy? Yes. Did that create a huge amount of excitement and personal satisfaction and recognition of the support they got from the company to do this? Oh my God, like that's taking people from that 30% engagement number that we talk about a lot to 100%, right? Because they're doing stuff that they have passion for. And even if there are other tasks that maybe are hard and grinding, they know that they have our support to continue to grow and learn within their own professional and personal area. That, and I wish we had done it, I wish I could say I knew this was going to be like that ahead of time. No, but I think we rolled the dice and I think we came up big. And I think the team, I mean, based on the feedback everybody's giving me, everybody's like so pumped up. And we lost a few days on other stuff, but you know what? I think we gained back so much more. And I think that's the type of practical stuff. Anyway, yeah.
100%, you're right. And like huge props to Lynn, Charisse, and Arlene, who all the things that Tim just mentioned, they're the co-authors of Stop Doing Stupid Stuff Tourista. Phenomenal job. I highly recommend you pick up a copy, whether you're a novice traveler or you're an experienced traveler like our ladies are. Check it out. It's an amazing read, great practical tips on how to prepare to get from wherever you're departing from to your destination so you can actually enjoy your destination. Really, really good read. But Tim, to your point, and I think I want to go back to something you said because I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit. We did have discussions, and you're the one that brought this up, by the way, of, hey, this is going to take time to be able to do, but the level of effort that is being put into this, the passion, and this goes back to Tony's article, which I really want to tie all of this back to, right, around autonomy, relatedness, and competence, the relatedness part of it. This team that made this happen put so much energy and effort, and there's so much excitement into it, and because the passion is there. And along the way, to coordinate the book signing event, the collateral that was produced, the corporate sponsorships, getting all of that together, those are all related to Transform CX. All of those can be picked up and put into what we do in Transform CX every single day. Now, are they doing it directly to benefit Transform CX? No, but the byproduct of that is transform CX is going to
Yeah.
get that much more passion, energy, focus, and from our people that we're sponsoring and
Yep.
doing stuff outside of it. And I think organizations have to take off the traditional lens of, well, this is how we've always done it. Well, okay, if this is how you've always done it, if we were operating in a static environment and we didn't have to worry about the, factors we're facing today to be successful as a business, then I would say, yep, you're right. But they have shifted to such a great degree that I don't think anyone, in the professional careers right now, at least in the past 2 decades, have seen all of the varying factors that we're facing right now.
Yeah.
So why not step back and start, even if you're going to experiment to a very small degree, I highly encourage you to look at Tony's article, use that as a starting point, and start that experimentation and start looking at the outcomes and the energy and the excitement and passion from the test group that you would try this with.
Agreed. Agreed. And, and again, I think, it's cycles. I remember, now I'm going to date myself again, but, when I entered the corporate world in the late 80s, coming out of the maritime industry, many companies and even in the government, they sponsored continuing education. And, people would go on and get a master's degree or an MBA or whatever. And that's kind of gone away. And I think a lot of companies were like, well, if I invest that money and Tim gets an MBA, he's going to go, work someplace else. And you kind of go, well, maybe, but why not? If you're doing that, right? If you're encouraging your team members to advance their education, to learn more, and hopefully bring it back to the office and apply it in what they're doing, isn't that a mutual benefit that comes from that? Because those same companies would then, after Tim left, because we didn't allow him to apply his degree internally, we'll go out and hire somebody with a fresh degree who has no experience in our company.
Yeah. Well, like seriously, it's just a math equation. That's all that it is okay, well, how can I create a program? And this is probably more the CFO Andreas kind of talking here, the mindset anyways. Okay, how long will it take if Tim in this example is going to get a degree or get a, trade skill certification, whatever the thing that Tim is passionate about? How can I create an individual program that allows for him to show up and be productive within my organization, right? For this time frame that he's going to earn something that he's passionate about. And then once he sees the loyalty and the individual, construction I've created for this program, for him to achieve that, what is the level of appreciation that he's going to reciprocate, or that I assume he's going to reciprocate back and apply that to the organization with his knowledge, the loyalty, the passion, etc. And I should be responsible, and as a leader should be held accountable for creating that type of environment that gives him the option to internally do that. And if I don't, and I don't have the opportunity for whatever varying business circumstances, then hey, let him go be a sphere of influence outside the organization, and he'll always remember what this organization did for him. And there's measurable reciprocation that comes with that as well. But you can't be lazy about it. And I'm using that word very purposefully. I'm not choosing a different adjective. You're lazy if you don't do that for your employees.
I agree. And if you don't do it for them, they'll get it from someplace else in the modern world, right? There's so many options
Exactly.
to develop that through a gig economy stuff. And that's actually what's happening. I mean, the worst scenario is what we see. 30% of my staff are engaged. If you're lucky nowadays, 70% are doing the bare minimum to get health benefits or whatever it is that's keeping them there, or a paycheck. And they're spending the rest of their time developing whatever, whether it's reaction videos on YouTube or TikTok, or they're actually building their own business. I mean, not a day goes by you read about somebody's $6,000 a month side gig or whatever, and it's a passion play for them, right? That's where their passion is going. So how do we bring their passion back? And I think Tony did a good thing about it, which was, you've got to listen, you've got to engage, you've got to find out what they're passionate about. Can you map that back to your own organization, in a way like we were fortunate enough to be able to do? And then what does that look like? And I think that, accountability, go do it, build it, create your own thing. And even if it's, a little bit of like, people will come and they say, I think we could do this product or this enhancement. And how often do they just get cut off? Like, I'm sorry, you don't understand the bigger picture of our business. That's not going to work. Wow. Like,
Yeah.
wow. Versus, wow, that's kind of interesting. I mean, we hadn't thought about that. Do you want to do some additional, can you bring some data to the table that might make us go, yeah, this is the right thing to do, blah, 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 blah. Anyway,
Agreed.
drives me nuts. But
Here's what I would close with too, and everything that you just said, 100% cosign for that. If you're in an organization, and exactly what Tim just said, if you feel like, well, no, yeah, we know what we're doing. I'll tell you what, publicly publish what your productivity and attrition, your turnover is on a monthly basis. Voluntarily publish that information, because if you're that good and those numbers objectively say, yes, we are that good, then guess what? You can create a whole nother business on guiding other companies, because there's a lot that aren't out there. Or you're fooling yourself and you're saying, hey, I got a great place to work award because I did this once a year survey that I forced everybody to do. And, they certainly told me exactly how they really felt, because if they didn't, I would fire them. Yeah, I'm a great place to work. Well, what's your attrition? Well, my attrition's 120% annualized. So yeah, that's a BS place to work, if you ask me.
Well, no, I mean, and exactly what we see. I mean, it happens over and over and over again. Well, I think with that, if it's okay, Tony, I'd like to thank you for writing a great and inspiring article, got us thinking about stuff. Andreas, as always, great to spend some time with you. And hopefully everybody out there, this was thought-provoking. Again, I got some feedback the other day, and I think it's important. And my stop doing stupid stuff here would be stop thinking you know everything and start listening to your team. That would be it. What do you think, Mr. Andreas?
Yeah, cosign.
Okay.
All the way.
All right, everybody, please subscribe or give us some feedback, and we appreciate all comments, and have a great week.
Yep, agreed. Thanks, everybody.